Well, hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of The Shepherd's Voice, this first Friday in March. And I want to introduce you now and bring you to the host of the program, the Bishop of Trenton, Bishop David M. O'Connell. Bishop, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. Good to be with you again.
I say Happy Lent, I suppose.
Happy Lent. Blessed Lent. That's
Blessed
what
Lent.
I use that expression.
Better expression.
Blessed Lent.
Blessed Lent, okay.
Well, of course, the whole world's attention in these days is on the Ukraine and the terrible conflict there and situation there.
Yeah. It's almost surreal. We're watching it on TV, and nothing's really affecting us here yet in any way, but the threat is there, of course. And
you know, it's an interesting thing. I had a chance to visit the Ukraine when I was president of Catholic University. I was invited to come to the Catholic University over there in the Ukraine to give a talk. And the talk was on Catholic identity. And I spoke to the faculty and assembly there. And I met with the president and rector of Catholic University, Father at the time, Father Boris Gudziak, who is now the Archbishop of the Archeparchy of the Ukrainians in Philadelphia. And we had a very pleasant visit. I had the chance to meet with other academics while I was there. I had a chance to visit the seminary, and this was in Lviv. Seminary was filled with seminarians. I mean, all you saw were black cassocks, in the room, and I had a chance to greet some of these young men preparing for the priesthood there, and had the chance to celebrate the Divine Liturgy, the Ukrainian Mass, the Liturgy of St. John the Divine, and had a chance to really visit in the town of Lviv and see what the people, see what life was like there. And it was really, it because of that visit and that memory, it kind of touches my heart because I have a connection, historical connection to the Ukraine from my own visit there. And so I've really been very conscious in these days of praying every chance I get for the people of Ukraine, for its leadership, which has been so courageous, but for the people, for the faithful, for the Catholics, and for all the people of the Ukraine, that God might steady them in these difficult days.
I wondered what the church's presence was in the Ukraine. You mentioned the Ukrainian church and Orthodox.
Well, there's Orthodox and there is Uniate. The Uniate, of course, is the Christian Catholic church that is in union with the Holy Father, in union with Rome, and then the Orthodox, which is not. Much of the theological traditions and many of the liturgical traditions are very similar. So there is a connection, and I would say, a strongly Christian country. Yeah. Although there's a significant presence of Jews and Muslims there as well.
Well, the president is Jewish, President Zelensky.
Zelensky, yes, is Jewish. He has, of course, a very interesting history. I've been watching in some internet presentations of his earlier life. He was a comedian and apparently a dancer. He was on their version of Dancing with the Stars.
But showing such enormous heroic virtue right now.
It's amazing.
His
really is
strength,
amazing.
his heroic strength.
But over 1 million people have left the country, have fled, as refugees, and that's going to have its impact in Eastern Europe, but it may even have its impact here. And our country has declared sanctions against the Russian government and actually the Russian president personally too. And as you think about it, as you listen to the various commentators, it just baffles me. I don't understand why this is occurring.
Yeah, I would think the same thing. This day and age,
it was not necessary. No. It was not provoked. It was just this quest for domination.
Right.
And
the crimes against civilians. I mean, the horrible. You see the pictures
that you
of
see
children and women and families.
So we really have to pray as our Holy Father has asked us. I spoke of this on Ash Wednesday at the Cathedral and asked the people to pray and offer their prayer and fasting on Ash Wednesday, as the Holy Father requested, for the cause of peace, especially peace in the Ukraine. And I think of that prayer, which you'll be saying later today, the Subtuum, ancient prayer, to ask our Blessed Mother's intervention for the people of the Ukraine. And that's really, our hearts go out to the people, the ones who suffer, and you see residential areas being destroyed.
Hospitals, schools.
People's lives, people in the metros or in parking garages and running out of food. They can't get out. The supplies can't get in, and the people can't really safely get out to try to provide for their families.
I was watching something last night where, and as you mentioned, the commentators, they have many descriptions of the president of Russia and madman and insane. But one commentator says, this is just satanic. It's just satanic what's going on, the destruction of life and how it's happening. And as you say, unprovoked.
And it's also hurtful to the people of Russia. Everybody is not in favor of this.
Right.
And moving forward in such a violent, brutal way, I just wonder what kind of conversations are occurring at the tables in the households in Russia, about this. And
right. Well, they say even some of the soldiers didn't realize what they were getting into.
Yeah.
They just said we didn't know we were doing this.
And they were saying, I saw it this morning on the news. Some of the soldiers, there's like a 40-mile convoy headed toward the capital, Kyiv, and the soldiers are just sitting in these trucks as they're stuck in the mud or they have flat tires. I mean, they weren't prepared for this kind of situation, and when they're confronted by the people of the Ukraine, they don't respond or react, in a harsh way. This is just a very, very difficult time, and it adds to kind of just a global feeling of instability.
Yes.
Certainly occasioned by, in the last couple of years, by the pandemic. And by the reactions to the pandemic, and a lot of differences of opinion about how to respond to it. And we're still feeling a little bit of that, although the pandemic seems to be diminishing a bit.
We hope.
I say that I'm not a scientist or a doctor, and I've had to remind people of that when they've been harsh with me. It's this is not my background. I have to depend on others to give me advice and so forth. So, but I just noticed that I think the pandemic has had so many, effects on people, but mentally and psychologically, I think it's had very harmful effects. I've noticed just an increase of harsh interactions with people, or quick responses, nastiness. More than I've ever seen it before. I mean, even in the grocery store. Yeah. People picking on the
cashiers.
The cashiers and the people that are stocking the shelves. They don't have anything to do with so much of this, but there's a lot of nastiness around. I've seen it even driving, although driving in New Jersey is always an adventure.
No, I was saying the same thing. I've noticed that drivers it's very aggressive drivers. And the people, I think, in frustrations, whatever, are coming out behind the wheel, unfortunately. Very dangerous place.
Well, we hope that this too is passing, although as some of the scientists and medical professionals that I've spoken to have said, basically what's going to happen is you're always going to have the coronavirus and its variants present, and that we probably we're going to have to end up like the flu, looking for an annual vaccine to deal with this. But who knows, and you just there's like so much every day I put in God's hands. I said, I feel bad, I'm going to sleep, but I'll give you I'll give you this to worry about.
Right, exactly.
This week, great week started this week. We had the men's conference out in Toms River this year. It was at St. Joe's Parish, St. Joseph's Parish there. We had about 300, 400 men who came. It's scaled down a bit from previous years when we've had crowds 700 or more.
Right. I guess some people are still a little apprehensive.
People are a little apprehensive of getting together. I understand that. And And also, as the leaders of the conference said to me, that they've lost a lot of the membership.
Really?
That there have been a lot of deaths among the regulars for the.
Like everything else in the church, we have to go toward the younger people and attract them and bring them in somehow.
And I was happy to see that there were a number of younger people there. Certainly younger than me.
I say the same
it's
thing.
a wide berth.
Easy to say, that's right.
But it was a good occasion. They had great speakers there. You know who was there? Jim Wahlberg. And Jim is the brother of Mark Wahlberg and Donnie Wahlberg, who's on Blue Bloods, really one of my favorite television shows. And he was there giving excellent, inspiring talk. In fact, all of the speakers that day were excellent. The leadership said that one of the best years they've had for inspiring talks.
Good.
And Wahlberg's brother, Mark Wahlberg, is just releasing a new movie called Father Stew.
Yes.
And that's coming out. And Jim, I spoke to Jim last night. He's down in Florida for the wedding of his daughter. And he's looking to try to create an event because the movie release is Good Friday.
Right.
Of course, we're not encouraging people to go to the movies on Good Friday.
Right.
But he said maybe sometime before then, we can have a special screening of it here in the diocese, and that he would contact the leadership of the Catholic Men for Jesus Christ and see if we can arrange something. So that'll be a great thing. When I called him last night, he was whispering on the phone. I said, "Is there something wrong with your voice?"
Yeah.
He says, "I'm in church." I said, "Oh." He said, "Yeah, I'm here at the rehearsal for my daughter for her wedding."
Oh, okay.
So I said, "Oh, I'll get to you later."
Yeah.
So I'll call him back and see what we can arrange. If something can be arranged, it'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, let us know. We'll be happy to promote it.
I certainly will let you know. And then on Monday night, I had a great evening I spent with the seminarians of the diocese. We have 10 fellows, and they're attending Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, and 3 of the 10 are at St. Charles Seminary in Philadelphia. So I asked them if they could get together to visit with me. Mount St. Mary's is on spring break this week, so it was easy for those men. St. Charles doesn't have their spring break until the week after Easter. But they still, they're not that far away, so they came, and we went to Leonardo's restaurant over.
Sure, we know Leonardo's very well. Yeah.
Roberto's a wonderful guy, and he was very kind to us and actually opened the restaurant for us, even though the restaurant was closed. It's closed on Monday, as many restaurants are in the area. So we had a wonderful time. But what I wanted to do with the seminarians, I wanted to give them a chance to participate in a synod session. The synod is going on, and this journeying together, this listening that we have been talking about and emphasizing, and I wanted to give them a chance to speak. It's interesting because when I do have the opportunity to be with the seminarians, as I do in many groups that I visit, I always say, "Is there anything you would like to ask me? Is there anything you'd like to say to me?" And of course, the seminarians almost never say anything.
Yeah.
So I said to them, I said, "Well, unlike in the past, I want to hear from you today while I'm with you." So here's my question. If Pope Francis was sitting in this room, what would you say to him? What advice would you give him? What question would you ask him? And that seemed to click because they all had an opportunity to say something, and they had some good insights. It's a listening session, so what sometimes is hard for me in some of these synod sessions is to hear what people say and not to comment.
Right.
And that's difficult because sometimes people say things that maybe are not quite right or quite accurate. The largest concern of the 10 seminarians, however, it was interesting. He said, they just find in their various apostolic works or things that they do, outreach from the seminary, the lack of real good instruction in the faith. That people don't really understand the faith, what the faith is, what the church teaches, and why. And it's very difficult. And they said that they're sensing, these are the seminarians,
Mm-hmm.
the Maple people really don't care.
Mm.
And that's a sad thing, especially for these young men who are preparing to,
Yeah.
take our place and,
Right. Right.
and lead the church in parishes and other institutions and organizations. So I found the conversation interesting.
People don't care to learn, or
They
people just don't care.
They just don't care.
Don't care.
It's not that important to them.
Mm.
It doesn't affect their lives. That's what they're encountering. I have some similar experience, but not as much as they. I didn't give it as much attention or as much emphasis as they do, because I don't find it completely pervasive, but I do find it that there is a lack of understanding of the faith. And I've often said, that my parents' generation seemed to have a better grasp of the basic tenets of the Catholic faith. In my generation, our generation, Jim, we're kind of the last of the Baltimore Catechism crowd.
Right. We were through the transition there.
Then our children, less so, and the generations coming after, the generation or two that have come after us, maybe don't pay as much attention to some of the things, or not given the exposure or experience of some of the things that we did. Anyway, it was a good session, and we had a wonderful dinner and a good time socializing. I think it's very important for the bishop to be with his seminarians, for let them get to know him, and for him to know them. I know a lot about them anyway because of their applications and contact with them over the years. But there always is a little distance from the bishop, and I just think it's very important that they have some opportunity to speak to me, and gives them the opportunity, if they want to see me privately about something, to have a chance to encourage them. So they're happy and they're well. It's a very good group of men, and I look forward to their continuing service of the church as they move up the ranks toward the priesthood.
Will there be any ordinations this year?
We have an ordination to the diaconate.
Okay.
Kevin Urchenko. Actually, he was a student at Catholic U, not in my time, but after my time. And he'll be ordained to the diaconate in May, along with the candidates for the permanent diaconate. And we'll do both ordinations together. And then he'll be given his pastoral assignment. I also wanted to talk to the seminarians a little bit about the program of priestly formation, which is under revision. And, the Bishops' Conference of the United States kind of sets the framework for how we approach seminary formation and seminary training. And there is a 6th edition of the program itself. It's not been finally approved by the Holy See, but we have glimpses of what it will entail, and there will be some changes in the movement through the seminary, and the time and what kinds of things will be offered. So I wanted to make sure that they were aware of that. And it was just a good session with them. And then, of course, in the diocese, throughout the diocese, the work of the Synod continues. We began the Synod promptly on October 17th with a decree and with Mass in the cathedral, with the appointment of 2 co-chairs, Mary Liz Ivins, who was the former principal and president of Notre Dame High School, and Deacon Pat Brannigan, who used to be the head of the New Jersey Catholic Conference, the director, and is a deacon at St. James Parish in Pennington. And so they have been traveling around, training people for these so-called listening sessions. And what I'm hearing from the folks, not only from them, but from others in the diocese, is that the people participated in the training sessions, but not a lot of people are coming to the actual listening sessions that are being offered. And some people are disappointed, and my response to that is we offer this and people come who want to come and who want to participate, and they participate freely, and that's the best we can do. It's not something you can force. The Synod, the diocesan part of the Synod will end on the original date, it was supposed to be from October to April,
Mhm.
April 1st.
Mm-hmm.
It'll end, and I'll meet up with the two co-chairs, and I'll look through some of the things that came across, all of the things really. I have a chance to look at that. And then I have to formulate a 10-page report,
Mm-hmm.
which then goes to the Conference of Bishops of the United States, who then will have a chance to gather all of the documents from the 195 dioceses of the U.S. that have participated, and make a report and presentation for the final year of the Synod, which will be the traditional gathering of the Pope and the bishops elected, and others who have been bishops and non-bishops who are appointed to the Synod. So it'll be interesting to see what comes about. Synods have been in the church since the early centuries. They've taken different forms and different shapes. It was after the Vatican Council that Pope St. Paul VI had instituted the Synod as a permanent canonical institution in the church, set up an office, and even when the synods are not in session, and they're not every single year, this office still continues to work. Pope Francis has taken the synod in a little bit of a different direction, in that he has cast the net very widely in terms of getting input and advice.
So it used to be the bishops, in past cases, the bishops would come together as
let's
a
just say
synod.
since 1965, there are two kinds of synod: an extraordinary synod and an ordinary synod. Both of them deal with topics of special urgency. The extraordinary synod is convened if there is urgency to some topic. The ordinary synod would be scheduled with some regularity, and it would be the Holy Father, and then bishops who are elected in the various countries and regions of the world, and then bishops who might be appointed. And then there are observers and others who participate, resource people. And in the more recent years, the population of the synod has moved to include others, in addition to the bishops and those equivalent to bishops who are invited to attend or elected to attend, and lay people and lay women as well, to have some role and some voice. So it's an interesting process. This one is interesting to me because it's a synod on synods. It's a listening about listening. And it'll be interesting to see what comes about. I've seen, especially in some of the, our friends on the alt-right, of course they condemn anything that comes out of Rome, but, have said, oh, well, no, this is going to change all the teachings of the church. And the Pope has said that that's not the purpose of it, that the teachings are not going to change because of the synod. And, some conversations about, everything's going to just blow wide open. And the Pope has said, no, it's not a democratic process in the sense of it's not a governing process. And it's not going to change things, and that we should avoid the same old, the same old debates, and focus on the positive. So I'm looking forward to see what.
Well, Holy Father will be celebrating his 9th anniversary later on this month. It was 2013.
Hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, but you think when that happened in the early years, by now this should be a completely different church, according to what people predicted. People who were not happy with his pontificate, or are not, and it's sad that you would go in that direction.
I just find him, the couple of times that I've been in his presence at closer range, not just sitting in the St. Peter's Square, but actually had the chance to talk to him. I celebrated Mass with him, just the two of us, on 2 different occasions. And not as easy, he's not as comfortable in English as Pope Benedict was. Certainly fluent in English and very, very, very good. He's not as facile in the English language. He understands. He picks up things. He's a serious man. And I know a lot of times you see him portrayed smiling and kissing babies and all of that, but he's a pretty serious fellow. And I even found in the last Ad Limina visit, which was in Thanksgiving of 2019, very intense and a careful listener. And we each had a chance, each bishop had a chance to ask him anything. And I certainly did at that time.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens as a result of that. We find ourselves, as of Wednesday, here in the season of Lent.
Yes.
I was looking forward to the season of Lent, believe it or not. It gives me a chance really to kind of take stock.
Yeah.
And I hope that's what all of us are approach this time. You know, if you haven't made resolutions or plans for Lent, it's not too late.
Right.
So give it some thought. It's a traditional period of penance for sin. It's 40 days. It commemorates Christ's 40 days in the desert when he confronted head-on the temptations of Satan in the desert. This before his public ministry. Lent has had an interesting development over the Church's long history. It's gone from a period of a couple days or intense fasting to what has become a 40-day season. It was around the Council of Nicaea, I think around 325 or so, that the formulation of Lent in a way that is similar to what we experienced started or began. Spiritual discipline and mortification. You know, growing up, as you know, Jim, well, since we were both contemporaries, it was always giving up candy,
right?
Or favorite things like that. When you got a little older, just giving up smoking, or we giving up something, and that was always the emphasis. And it's a good emphasis, and it's a right emphasis, but it's not the only emphasis.
Yeah.
Since in past couple of decades, more attention is paid to doing something, not only just giving up, but giving something. And that is a traditional triad, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. The three legs of the season of Lent, and certainly that has not changed. Fasting and abstinence. We don't have a lot of days of fast and abstinence in the church anymore. For us now, in our canon law and in our practice, fasting 2 days, Good Friday and Ash Wednesday and Good Friday for fasting. And fasting is one full meal a day. There's a lot of things people say about what constitutes fasting and what you can eat and what you can't eat. And, Pope St. Paul VI said it, after the council, the law of fasting allows only one full meal during the day, but it doesn't prohibit taking food in the morning or at night. As far as quantity and quality are concerned, it goes with the local custom. I write every year. I send something out to the parishes with the requirements of Lent, and then I write something in the Monitor and on the website about Lent itself. Fasting, those 2 days, it obliges Catholics 18 to 59. So we're out.
I know.
We're out of that price range, right?
That's right.
And abstinence is obligatory for those who are 14 and older. It's abstinence from meat. And I think the point here is that there should be some actual penance.
Right. Doesn't mean you go out and have the captain's feast at Red Lobster.
Yeah, I know. I remember one time being in a parish where the pastor, we had the fast on Good Friday, and then after the Good Friday service, took us out for Big Lobster dinner. I mean, it's kind of scandalous in a way, but I guess I could have said no, I didn't. But so the fast and Fridays of Lent are abstinence, with the exception this year of March 25th, the Feast of the Solemnity of the Annunciation of the Lord. Canon law says that in the days like that, major feast, for example, Annunciation or the Feast of St. Joseph, that the law itself dispenses from abstinence. But other than that, we still obtain and maintain it. This first Sunday of Lent coming up, Saturday, Sunday, we say Sunday of Lent, but it includes the vigil on Saturday. Right. I'll be over at Sacred Heart Church in Trenton and celebrating Mass for the parish there. And also it's a celebration of the conferral of papal honors to the pastor there, Father Dennis Appledight, now Monsignor Dennis
Oh, okay.
Appledight. And so I'll have the chance to present him with a certificate from the Holy Father and congratulate him in the midst of his parish. You know, when someone is named a Monsignor, it's an honor for them. Of course,
Sure.
it's a recognition for them, but it's also a recognition for the parish, and
Yeah.
it's an honor for the parish as well. And so there will be a nice celebration there this coming weekend, and I'm delighted to be able to participate in that. I'll be going to a different parish each Sunday of Lent, now that the last 2 years of pandemic seem to have subsided a little bit. I'll renew my custom of going to a different parish each Sunday of Lent and throughout Holy Week this year. You know, the church, as I've said in many times, and I want to say something about this because I don't think people really understand the structure of the church, or they positively misunderstand the structure of the church. You know, the Catholic Church is a community of faith, worship, and law. In the faith, we know what that is, our common beliefs, our values, what we hope for, as we read in the letter to the Hebrews, and conviction about things we haven't seen. And you know, we have a faith that we hold in common. That's why we speak of the church as a community. It's a community referring to people diverse in composition, but bonded together, united together with a common history. We have a history in the church. We own it, good and bad and ugly. We own it. A common purpose. Christ gave us a mission, really a continuation of his mission and beliefs and values and goals and expectations. All of these things define the community that is the church. With respect to the Catholic Church, faith is a spiritual conviction in relationship to God as creator, Jesus, the Son of God, as our Redeemer, and the Holy Spirit as our sanctifier and sustainer, three distinct persons in one God. And it's not only relationship with them, but through that relationship with God, a relationship with one another, who are all created by God and are children of God, and so important. The church is a community of worship. It refers to a common and shared response to God in prayer. There are things that constitute Catholic prayer, and other acts that are considered, not only the Mass, the Eucharist, which is our central prayer, but other acts that are considered sacred, the sacraments and sacramentals. You know, this week we had ashes. Ashes are not a sacrament, but are sacramentals. They're things that point to something sacred. And a set of laws, you know, and this is probably the one aspect of this community that gives people the most agita. You know, the fact that the church is a church of laws, and laws are supposed to be point people to the common good, the fulfillment of the common good, what's good for all. And there's a universal law in the church, canon law. There's a particular law in the church that's focused on regions or dioceses, and other types of law in the church. And I think it's important for people to realize that in this community of faith, in this community of worship, in this community of laws, the accents on community, common, that people have to realize that it's not a democracy.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, as time has progressed, and you know, people seem to think that the church is a democracy. It's run by majority rule, and it isn't. Okay, we have the Pope is the vicar of Christ, and he's the authentic teacher, and the bishops in union with them, successors of the apostles as they are, join with him in communion, in teaching, and share with him that. And so my role, for example, as bishop of this diocese, is to ensure that the mission of the church, which is to teach, to govern, and sanctify, is fulfilled. Because that was the mission of Christ.
Right.
That's the mission he handed on to the apostles, and that's the mission that the apostles hand on to their successors. And so that's our role. You know, sometimes people don't realize that the bishop, whatever they think of their bishop or of me or those who will succeed me, you know, I do not lick the stamp on every letter that comes out of the chancery.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run the church alone. The church in our time is not the church of Jesus' day or the earlier apostles, we're talking about billions of people.
Yeah.
We're talking about lots and lots of forms of expression, and we're talking about structures and facilities and schools and all kinds of things that were not present in the early church. I hear sometimes from people, well, what would Jesus do? And I said, well, let's rephrase that. What would Jesus do with 1 billion followers in a church with all these physical facilities and a place with, what would he do then? That's the
and
question.
Worldwide, yeah.
Yeah, that's the question I always have to ask, what would Jesus do in the concrete situation in which we find our church? And here in the diocese, I have a number of groups or bodies that help me. The Presbyteral Council, which is the priests of the diocese. They are, some are appointed and some are elected by their regions, and they come together as presbyters, as priests, to give me advice.
Yeah.
I have what I created when I came, an Episcopal Council, and that term may be used in other dioceses, but here in this diocese, it's the vicars, my 4 representatives. I have a representative in each of the 4 counties of the diocese, because I can't be in all counties at once all the time, everywhere. So there are 4 priests that I appoint who are vicars, substitutes. Vicars means substitute. They stand in for the bishop in their region. And then I have a few other priests who are part of this Episcopal Council whom I appoint. I have pastors, pastors of large and significant parishes, as well as pastors who represent populations in the diocese that are particularly large. We have a college of consultors, and that's established by canon law. And they have a set of responsibilities, like when the bishop dies or the bishop transfers and there's a vacancy there, they have a responsibility to elect an administrator and submit that name to the Holy Father for approval until a bishop is named. There are certain acts of financial administration that require the consent of the College of Consultors, and so that's another group. And then we have a finance council, which is mostly lay people with expertise in finances who help to advise the bishop. The finance council is required by canon law, as it is in every parish. In a parish, the parish council is not required by canon law. It's encouraged, but it's not required. But a finance council is. But in both cases, they're advisory. They advise the bishop, or in the case of a parish, they advise the pastor about things that are significant in terms of the resources and stewardship of parish's physical assets. We, in the diocese, the Finance Council, again, composed mostly of lay people, meets a couple times a year, 4 times a year. And I'm present, the Vicar General is present, and whatever audits, financial audits or financial decisions are made, we discuss. We work in the chancery, called the Pastoral Center, but I kind of refocused it on that name, chancery, because that's what it is. All of the offices in the diocese, the finance office, the tribunal, the pastoral life office, the communications office, all these offices, social work, and so on, they all work in the chancery. The main offices are in the chancery, and they assist me with a lot of these things. I don't think you can find a bishop who has perfect competency in everything.
Right.
And I certainly don't have competency, and I depend on other people to help. And one of the things that supports the work of the chancery, which again is work for the parishes in the diocese, is the annual appeal, which we launched a couple Sundays ago. This year our theme is "What's Love Got to Do with It?" And the answer is everything. And so we try to demonstrate that to the faithful, that we need their generosity and their help to continue to support because we don't have any other source of support.
Right. I know that feeling.
Other than that. And then, of course, in the next level would be the pastor, curates or parochial vicars in the parish, and they have their parish council and their finance council and so on. So there is a structure, and it's a structure that largely is governed by the law of the church.
Right.
And it's governed by the law of the church to support the common good of the church and to continue to promote and foster the development of faith in the diocese. And people have to understand what it is. You know, people these days, you know, they have this attitude, well, I'm going right to the top. I'm not going to talk to my pastor, and I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm going to write right to the bishop. And when I get their letter, I read it, and as I do, unless it's unsigned. If it's unsigned, as I've said many times, I don't read it. But if it's a signed letter, I'll read it, and then I send it to the office that deals with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's because I couldn't possibly do everything in a diocese myself. You know? I exercise vigilance and supervisory role, and when necessary, determined by canon law, I exercise direct jurisdiction, but I depend on others for help, and that's what we deal with. If we have time, I may say a little bit more about that. Rite of election is this week, this Sunday at the Co-Cathedral of Freehold, 3 p.m. All of those in the diocese who've been participating in the rite of Christian initiation and who intend to be baptized or confirmed or receive First Holy Communion, or all three, come to the Co-Cathedral, and their names are written in the book of the elect. This is kind of like the last phase before they are brought into the church. We have catechumens. Catechumens are those who have not been baptized, and so they'll receive baptism and confirmation and First Holy Communion at the Easter Vigil. And their pastor or those who prepared them are delegated to confer those sacraments. I will do that in a parish. This year I'll be at St. Paul's in Princeton for the Easter Vigil. And in addition to the catechumens, there are what are called candidates. Those are people who have been baptized, validly baptized in another faith communion, but are moving into the Catholic Church. So you have the catechumens and the candidates come together, and their names are enrolled in the book of the elect, and they move forward in these last few weeks for the final preparation for full union with the church. So they call that the rite of election, the elect. They're the elect of God, and the bishop, this rite of election is done in the presence of the bishop, who is the official witness for the diocese and all its parishes. I think maybe this year we maybe have about 45 parishes out of 100 that or 99 that will be participating in that. It's a beautiful day. Mount Carmel Guild, you know the Mount Carmel Guild here in the diocese in Mercer County, which serves the poor and the elderly and has done so for over 100 years. They'll celebrate their Founders Day on March 13th with a Mass at 12:30 at St. David the King Parish. The founder, of course, is my predecessor, Bishop Walsh, who established this great entity to serve the poor. As the month goes on, of course, St. Patrick's Day on the 17th, St. Joseph's Day on the
Which
9th,
is not a Friday this year.
Which is not a Friday, but I'm still getting requests for dispensations from the fast on Friday. Amazing. We have our Priest Spirituality Day. We do that twice a year in Advent and in Lent. And it's an opportunity for the priests to come together. We bring in a speaker this March 23rd. It will be Father Kevin Mullen, who is the provincial of the Franciscan Fathers, the priests who are stationed in Long Beach Island. Their superior. I've asked him if he would come and give a talk to all the priests of the diocese, and he's a great fellow, good sense of humor, and I'm sure the guys will enjoy listening to him. And then we have a meal together, which is so important, the fraternity of the priests, and then the opportunity for the Sacrament of Penance. We bring in priests who will be available in case the priests, you're a busy priest, they don't always get the chance to to get to confession with the same ease that the rest of the parishes do. But so I have priests there who are serve as confessors for the priest, and so it's a good thing. March 25th, already I mentioned that this was the Feast of the Annunciation of the Lord. The Holy See, Pope Francis in 2014 established this initiative called 24 Hours for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And the emphasis is on offering extra time for the Sacrament of Penance, for confession to be offered. And we've had a good response from the parishes. We have sites in all 4 counties where priest will be available for more time. Mostly not 24 hours. That's not always practical and possible, but extra time for confession. So I encourage you to look in your parish bulletins, look at the monitor. There'll be a schedule, a posting there of all the parishes that are having this. And we've gotten a good response in the past. This year the motto is, through him we have forgiveness. As the month comes to an end, we have pride in our priest dinner. The Knights of Columbus always host a dinner every year to thank the priests who serve in their parishes, and they're doing so this year, although the venue is different. It's going to be at the Southgate Manor in Freehold rather than down at the shore. So we still have a couple minutes. Let me just say a few things that are happening. I just want to make some comments. One of them is there is this rumor going around, and it's been fueled. It came to my attention through the media that the Church of the Epiphany in Brick is closing or merging. And let me just say that's not true. I don't know where this came from. I know there's some agitation down there about a couple of things, but whoever started this rumor, this is not true. The church is not closing. I've spoken to the pastor. I asked him, make sure you announce that, because whoever started this it's mischief. And whatever their motivation or reason. Yeah. So the Church of the Epiphany in Brick is not merging or closing. There are no plans to do that. You know, what the future will be, no one knows, because a lot of our parishes have to face diminishing numbers and all of that.
Right.
But right now there are no plans whatsoever to close that
good
parish.
to know.
We have, in that same area, people have probably been reading about the sale of some land from one of our parishes, Visitation. The parish has entered into a land purchase contract with a recognized developer. The parish has had land, I think it's 34 acres, maybe. I think it's about that many. I'm not sure the exact number, for years. And we pay $25,000 a year in taxes for just land that is not being used for anything. And that's a burden on a parish. Especially a smaller parish. And so finally we've had an opportunity to enter into a contract with a developer. Of course, people are rising in rebellion and saying, the preserving open space, there's nothing on this.
Visitation in
Visitation in Brick. And the parish certainly is not opposed to open space preservation. But the parish needs resources, no money, no mission. Unfortunately, that's the situation. And the parish just can't continue to carry the burden of $25,000 a year just for taxes. That doesn't include anything else. But people are reacting, and I sense, in a sense, I say overreacting. I had a letter this week from some officials down there. Well, the contract has already been made. We can't break that contract without incurring a lawsuit, and we're not going to do it. But again, as I mentioned earlier, we live in times where people can't accept answers that they don't want or they don't like.
Right.
But we are moving forward with the contract as we have made. Some officials down there say, well, we haven't been able to get in touch with the diocese. That's not true. We've been in touch with people. We've responded to people. It's just that the answer that we get is not what they like and not what they want. So, unfortunately, people have taken it out on the parish, protests in front of the parish. They contacted CBS at one point. Seeds of Service, which is the social program, what do you call it, the ministry program there, reaching out to the poor and serving the needs of the poor and the homeless and the hungry in that area. They were even protesting them because their office happens to be next to the church. You know, this land belongs to the church, and the church disposes of it as it sees fit and as it's needed. And so I don't think my words will be the end of this discussion, but
and the big complaint is that it's just open space. And
it's open space. And then they say, well, this developer is going to put in residential homes similar to others in the area there, that it'll create traffic burdens and all of this other stuff. So we've considered all the options. We've touched base with those we need to touch base with, and we're going to move forward with this. And another issue down in the shore area is the closing of Mother Seton Academy. That's generated some agitation among some of the people. There's all kinds of things being said that are unfortunate. The two parishes merged their schools into this one school a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And they merged because their enrollments were dropping. And rather than close both schools, they figured, well, let's give this a shot and see if we can keep this school going. Well, as of today, they have 138 students in grades 1 through 8. And it's just not viable. It's not sustainable in its present form. The total operational budget for this school for last year was $1,470,000. The tuition for a single student is $5,000, $550, and many people ask for discounts, and for that they can't afford it. But 138 students. The diocese has helped subsidize it. The parishes have helped subsidize the school, but they can't continue to do it. The parishes have a lot of other burdens, financial and otherwise. The two parishes, St. Aloysius and St. Veronica's. And so the pastors came to me and they said, Bishop, and they brought the numbers and they brought their budgets and showed it to me, and very sincere. You know, none of us want to close this school.
Right.
The last resort.
Right.
We don't want to close, but it's just not viable.
Yeah. And
the diocese can't keep providing for that. I mean, their overall debt to the diocese alone, in terms of operation, $150,000 for back insurance bills and $81,000 in property and casualty, which you have to provide.
Yeah.
I mean, we're dealing with a real-life situation here. This is not something that's just some flight of fancy. But people are being very, very tough. The decision has been made at the recommendation of the two pastors who are the co-chairs of the school to close the school at the end of this academic year, and the school will close. But again, a lot of people, we're trying to raise money, you know. They don't realize, you know, you raise $150,000, which is a wonderful thing. Where were you when we needed you over the years? Well, we didn't know. Well, I find that very hard to believe. But $150,000 will barely cover. It's a drop in the bucket when you look at a $1.4, almost $1.5 million annual operating budget. And you raise this money, and that's a wonderful thing, and the intentions are great. But are you going to do that every year?
Yeah.
We just can't continue to sustain. You know, when I came here, my first annual appeal I dedicated to the schools. And I said at that time, I'm all for Catholic schools. 100%. My whole life has been in Catholic education.
Right.
But not at all costs.
Yeah.
And the parishes, they have to support religious education programs where there are many, many more students affected than actually go to a Catholic school. So we're sorry. This is not something we want, but it's something that is necessary. And so that's where we are at the present time. I just wanted to address that. I know that, again, that won't be the end of that discussion either. I got a call from a congressman yesterday about it.
Oh, my.
You know, and some local politicians.
Wow.
Well, would you like to support school vouchers? How about that?
Yeah,
Maybe that would make all the difference in the world. I think so. Anyway, blessed Lent to everyone. It's great to be with you and continue to serve you as best I can in the diocese.
Thank you, Bishop. God bless you.
God bless.
you.